Hello, Cardiff class. So today we are going to be learning about someone really quite important, who you will definitely have heard of before, and you'll see why we're doing about this person in just a few slides. So we're looking all about Roald Dahl today. So Roald Dahl lived from 1916 to 1990. Okay, so his early life. Roald Dahl was born on the 13th of September 1916 in Llandaff, which is the northern part of Cardiff in Wales. So that's why we're learning about him, because he's one of the most famous people from Cardiff. His parents were from Norway, which is a country in Europe. He had an older sister called Astrid, but she died from meningitis in 1920 when she was only 7. Roald's father was so sad that he fell ill from pneumonia and also died a few weeks later, so he had a really sad start to his life. At this time, Roald's mother was pregnant with her third child, who was born in the autumn, and she was called Asta. So it's quite a big family. So his education. He went to school in Wales, but after he got in trouble too many times, his mother sent him away to boarding school in Weston-super-Mare. So he wasn't very good in school, a little bit mischievous, so he got sent to a boarding school. Now, a boarding school is somewhere where you go and you don't just go to school, you end up staying there as well, so you live there as well. You get to come home at certain times, like in the school holidays, but he would stay there overnight as well. He later attended Repton Public School in South Derbyshire, so he moved to England from this. So he did live in Wales, but now moved to England. The boys at the school were sometimes asked to be chocolate testers for a famous chocolate company. This experience inspired him to write the book Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Now, I think that sounds pretty cool, being able to be a chocolate tester for a factory. I'd like to have that job. Okay. So, when he was a young man, after school, Roald's mother offered to pay for him to attend Cambridge University, but he didn't want to do that. He wanted to adventure instead. He went on an expedition to Newfoundland and then joined an oil company so that he could work abroad. So he likes to travel. He was sent to Africa for 3 years, but after only 1 year, the Second World War broke out. So he had to join the army. So he joined the Royal Air Force and he became a pilot, which meant that he flew planes. So there we have Roald Dahl as a young man. In the RAF, so in the Air Force, he was posted to Libya, where he flew a Gloucester Gladiator plane. He crashed in the Western Desert in North Africa and suffered such bad head injuries to his head that he had to stay in hospital in Egypt for 6 months. It's a really long time. He returned to the Air Force, but after a while he began having really, really bad headaches from the accident. So he had to return to the UK and he couldn't fly planes anymore. So there's your Gloucester Gladiator plane. That's what Roald Dahl used to fly. And that is the badge for the RAF. You might have seen that around. So, writing about experiences. In 1942, Roald was posted to Washington in the United States to work as an assistant air attaché. So this meant he was writing all about things to do with planes. He met the author C.S. Forester, who suggested Roald should write about his experience in the desert flying planes. This led to Roald being paid for the first time for writing, which was published in the Sunday Evening Post newspaper. So the first thing he got paid to write was all about his experiences of flying his planes. Someone Like You. So in 1951, Roald had a collection of stories published in a book called Someone Like You. During this year, he also married the actress Patricia Neal, so that's his wife there. They lived in Great Missenden in Buckinghamshire in England, where he wrote many of his famous stories. Family life. So Roald Dahl and Patricia Neal had 5 children: Olivia, Tessa, Theo, Ophelia and Lucy. It's quite a big family again. Unfortunately though, Olivia died at the age of 7 from measles, and a year before that, Theo was involved in an accident when his pram was hit by a taxi in New York, and he suffered a brain injury. Now Roald Dahl became really involved in looking after him and was a really good dad so that he could help look after his son. And he even invented some new equipment to help him to look after him. So he used his fantastic brain to start thinking about how he could help his children as well. So whilst this was all happening, he wrote the book James and the Giant Peach, which if you haven't read it, it's lovely. And if not, there's also a film as well, which is really good. Roald Dahl's inspiration. Roald Dahl started telling his fantastical stories to his children at bedtime. he realised how much his own children enjoyed his stories and decided to write them down for all children. So some of our favourite books all started with Roald Dahl making up some stories for bedtime. So we've got Matilda here, Willy Wonka from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and The Grasshopper from James the Giant Peach. So, films. Roald Dahl was a good friend with Ian Fleming, who wrote the James Bond films. Roald Dahl wrote the screenplay, so he wrote part of the films for You Only Live Twice, and he also wrote the script for Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which is a really famous film, but from quite a while ago, so you might not have seen it. So that's the car from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. It's about a car that can fly. So 2 years later, the film of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was released, which Roald Dahl had also written the screenplay for. So you might have seen that one. There's been a newer version as well, which you've probably seen that more likely. But Roald Dahl was involved in the first one. Children's books. The 1980s was a time when most of his children's books were written and published. So he wrote The Twits, which I know you looked at last year with Mrs. Tarry. He also wrote George's Marvellous Medicine, Revolting Rhymes, which is really good. They're like classic fairy tales told in some really funny ways. He's done a really good job with those. The BFG, The Witches, Dirty Beasts, Ghost Stories, Boy, The Giraffe, The Pelly and Me, and Matilda. There's a book of Matilda. It's one of my favourites, I think. We have tears in our eyes as we wave our goodbyes. So unfortunately, Roald Dahl died on the 23rd of November in 1990 at the age of 74. In this year, SEO Trot was published and the film of The Witches was released. So even after he'd passed away, his work was still being created, and it's still now lots of new ones are being brought out. So his legacy. So each year, Roald Dahl Day is celebrated all around the world on the 13th of September because that's his birthday. Many of his books have been turned into films, and Matilda and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory are also now big musicals on the West End. There's a museum all about Roald Dahl in Buckinghamshire, and it sees a celebration of 100 years of Roald Dahl. It's more than 100 years now, though. The author Michael Rosen launched the Roald Dahl Funny Prize to reward authors and illustrators who write stories and illustrate books, which are all about humour and being funny, because Roald Dahl did some really, really funny books. So, your task for today, I thought I'd take you back to your learning about the twits that you did with Mrs. Tarry. And I'd like you to have a go at doing some descriptive writing about the two main characters. So, you've got your picture of Mr. and Mrs. Twit here, and in this purpley pinky box here, you've got loads and loads of words that you might use to describe these two characters. So, some of them don't describe the characters. So I wouldn't use handsome to describe Mr. Twit. But what word might you use? You probably wouldn't use caring either. So have a look through carefully and think, which of these words can I use and which ones can't I use? And then I want you to have a go. So you might start by describing what they're wearing. So Mr. Twit is wearing a purple suit. Now, is it a new suit? Is it an old suit? Is it scruffy or is it really clean and nice? What's Mrs. Twit wearing? Describe the hair, describe his beard. Now we can already see he's got lots of little bits in his beard. Can you remember from the story what those bits were? If you need to, there's usually some videos on YouTube of people reading the stories if you need to remind yourself. So you could always do that, but I think you should be able to write a little bit of a descriptive paragraph all about these two characters using some of these words. So tell me everything you can see about these two characters. Again, please do email through your work to me. It'd be lovely to see what you get up to and see what your writing is like, see what you can remember about these two characters. And I hope you have a lovely weekend.